Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Super excited today. Alexandria Yent is going to teach today, and this is her first class. So we got to go,
Hello.
Alex from Linda. Woohoo! We remember kindness is our word, and we're all here to support Alexandria in this moment. Just imagine what it feels like for her being first up here, and we're all watching her. So, super excited for Alexandria. We only have half an hour. We have a big crowd coming in. So I'm going to turn it right over and I'm going to go over on mute and Alexandra's going to let her rip.
Hello. I'm super happy to be here. So welcome to Unlocking the Secrets to Powerful Scenes. This is something I'm very excited to talk about because I think scene structure is super important in writing stories. And we're going to talk about how it doesn't really matter what genre you're writing in, how proper scene structure stretches across all genres. And we're also going to talk when we look at the books that we have picked out. So we have 5 genres. We're going to talk about how scene structure can actually let the reader know what they're expecting to, what they're going to read, what to expect in the entirety of the book. It's going to be fun. So we're going to read romance, fantasy, science fiction, and thriller. So we're going to look at the first scenes. One's a prologue. These are all scenes that you can read. You can go onto Amazon and look at these scenes and read them yourself. So who am I? I'm Alexandria Yount, and I am a Fictionary certified story coach editor, and it's a fantastic course. I absolutely loved it. And I also write romance and science fiction. The main thing that I am is I'm a lover of story structure. I learned that here at Fictionary, and it just kind of grabbed onto me and won't let go. So one thing I want to talk about today is this book. So if you haven't read this book, I recommend you do. It's How to Unlock the Secrets to Writing a Best-Selling Novel. And if you have read it, then you're going to understand that today that you'll understand where your scenes are already supposed to be. Like if you're writing an inciting incident or a middle plot point, you'll understand that these scenes have requirements, reader expected requirements or recommendations, or and this book explains them. They're not hard and fast rules. You are the artist of your story, but it's just things that readers expect to see in a best-selling novel. And that would be the inciting incident where the world turns upside down for your protagonist, or in a romance, it's a meet cute. And then there's plot point 1 where the protagonist realizes the goal and probably isn't very proactive, but they're sort of they realize it, but they're maybe not proactive again towards it. Then there's the middle plot point where the story shifts and the protagonist becomes more active towards that goal, often down the wrong road. I mean, you've seen that a lot, like in Marvel. Seems like in the middle of the book, they're always doing the wrong thing, but they're actively trying to achieve the goal. So, and then that brings us to plot point 2, and that's the darkest point for your protagonist to usually reach rock bottom. It's also the part, maybe in the same scene or the next scene after the plot point 2, they will get that last little bit that they need to achieve the climax, that last thing that they need. Maybe in a fantasy, it's figuring out how to control the magic or whatever. And then that brings us to the climax where the protagonist achieves or doesn't achieve the goal, depending on what you're writing. If you're writing dark, a dark story arc, they might not achieve that goal. So, but the goal is addressed. So that is in this book. If you've read it and if you'd like to leave a review, Christina would just love that, and it would really help her and Lucy Cook out. And it would also, the more reviews you leave on Amazon, that helps that book to reach other writers that are looking for structure and looking for answers how to create bestsellers. So if you like what we discussed today, and if you want to write sensational scenes on your own work, I would recommend that you take this August 8th class with the fabulous Linda O'Donnell. I'll be there. It's a great class. And then you can bring your own work. It's a totally safe environment. You can share your own work and we can all discuss it. And Linda can help you with writing sensational scenes. So that brings us to, this is one of my favorite parts of Fictionary. So when I took my certification course, I love visuals. And this really helped me learn how to structure a scene. Because I mean, it's just so simple. I call it scene diamond. What is a scene? So, a scene is a section of your novel where a character or characters engage in action or dialogue. So, most scenes have both. Some just have action and some just have dialogue, but those are pretty far and few in between. But some scenes do. So, but most scenes have action and dialogue. And so, we're going to learn also today about how to create a scene skeleton blurb. Here at Fictionary, we love skeleton blurbs. I mean, it just keeps you so focused on what your book means and what you're trying to say to your reader. But before I get too going on about that, we'll talk about the entry hook. So the entry hook and the point of view goal is the first part of your scene. Usually comes in the first few paragraphs. They can be swapped. They can also be the same sentence. An entry hook and a point of view goal can be the same sentence. The structure is kind of fluid. It's not like hard and fast. Oh, you have to follow these rules. But after that comes the scene middle. So that there is structure, but like I said, you can flop the goal and the entry hook. And then comes the scene middle. That is the shift. So maybe a new character comes in, maybe the point of view goal is revealed in the scene middle. That happens often. And then after that is the scene climax and the exit hook. Again, like the first two, these can be swapped. They can also be the same sentence, and they usually always come towards the end of the scene. So the structure is there, but it's not like you have to follow these rules. It's just you're the artist, but this is the basic structure of a sensational scene and what you'll see in your bestsellers, which we're going to look at today. So after that, we're going to look at what a scene must do. A scene must grab the reader's attention, and that is your entry hook. And I'm going to talk about these books we got to review in a minute here. We're going to see some fabulous entry hooks. I mean, just fabulous. So after that, your scene must contain an external point of view goal. So that's something that your point of view, that's their external goal, something they're physically wanting to do in this scene. Get a cup of coffee. I mean, that's so simple. And then a scene must have a middle. That changes the direction of the scene. Again, a new character introduced. It just shifts the protagonist either closer to or further away from their scene goal. That's what a scene middle does. Then the protagonist must address the scene goal. And just like the overall story goal, address means it just has to be addressed. The reader needs to see that goal that is stated in the beginning addressed, or the scene will lack structure and it'll lack feeling finished. Now, some scenes have a goal that will go over multiple scenes. So it doesn't necessarily have to be achieved in that scene, but it should be addressed. So finally is the cool part, which we're going to look at in the 5 books, is make the reader want to turn the page. So if you want to write a book that's got a sensational scene and a bestseller, you must have those readers turn the page. So like they're not going to be, oh, I got to go do laundry. They're going to let that laundry just sit there because they want to finish your book. So what is this? The shortest version of a scene blurb answers these questions. Who is the point of view character? So that needs to be, it's part of anchoring a scene, and the reader needs to know who that person is right from the beginning, who they're reading about. Not totally from the beginning, but pretty close. And then what is their external point of view goal? So what are they trying to achieve in this scene? And last, the stakes. What happens if the goal fails? The higher the stakes, the more exciting the scene, as it were. Racing in a car chase, or life and death stakes, or in a romance, it's just are they going to get together? So your stakes matter on your genre. So why do we do this? Why is scene structure so important? I mean, anybody can write a story. I love to write, but if I want to make readers happy, then I need to ensure that I'm meeting story expectations in my scenes. And that's the diamond that we talked about, right? So, and then the last thing is to know if your scene belongs in your novel. Scene structure will let you know what you're doing. Always ask yourself, what is the point of this scene? What am I doing? And it will let you know. Using scene structure will tell you if your scene belongs in your novel. So here's the exciting part. We're going to talk about these 5 books. And so we have romance, fantasy, science fiction, thriller, and mystery. So the first book we're going to look at is The Bodyguard. So The Bodyguard is a romance, and it's written by Catherine Center, and it's kind of a reverse trope. So usually the guy is the bodyguard. Well, this time we have a gal. She's the bodyguard to Jack, and he's a famous movie star. So we're going to look at the app today. And this is, I already have the bodyguard brought up. So this is the first scene. And again, you guys can go on Amazon or wherever you read and read this scene. We're going to look at the first thing. So Hannah, her overall goal in the story. So remember how we talked about the a scene blurb mirrors the story blurb, and her overall goal is to learn to love herself, or she will never find her happily ever after with Jack, who's the movie star. So, but this is the first scene, and so in the scene skeleton blurb, remember Hannah, our protagonist, that's the or first guideline, must keep her promise to her dying mother. So that's her goal. She wants to keep her promise. And what are the stakes? Otherwise, she will live with the guilt of disappointing her. So remember, this is a romance, so we don't have life and death stakes like we would like in Jason Bourne or something like that. This is a romance. So she doesn't want to live with the guilt of disappointing her, which is pretty powerful stakes if you ask me. I really love my mother. So this is, we're going to look at the hook here. This is the entry hook. Mother's dying wish was for me to take a vacation. That's a great entry hook. Why? Why does her mom wish her to take that? Well, so we keep reading, and then we find here that this is her goal. Of course, I hadn't realized it was when it was her dying wish at the time. That's pretty high stakes. So obviously her mom had told her that, and she didn't know it was her dying wish. And then in the middle here, so this is the shift. So obviously she's been at the funeral. It's 3 a.m. My funeral clothes were draped over a chair, and I had been waiting to fall asleep since midnight. So this is the shift. This is where she's like, I'm going to do something to achieve this goal of not disappointing my mom. So what does she do? She buys 2 tickets to Toledo. So that's the vacation her mom wanted her to go on. But what does 2 tickets tell us? So we already know her mom's passed away. Who's the other person? It's romance. We already know that from reading the back of the book. So she's a boyfriend, a husband. We're going to find out, right? So that tells us that some kind of Valentine's lovebirds package. Look at this sentence. That totally tells us that this is a romance. Done. She bought the tickets. So then now this is our exit hook. What's going to keep that reader not folding the laundry and turning the page? Now all I had to do was force myself to go. So is she going to go? She obviously has to force herself. She doesn't want to take a vacation. She'd rather work, probably. You can see in character here, we have her point of view goal. So in Fictionary here, we fill all these elements out, and this is going to give us our story map. So I absolutely love the story map. So we click on visualize, and then we go over to story map. You guys, this is fantastic. If this is your book, this will be all your scenes, and it's a simple glance at what your scene structure is. And if you're worried about any type of plot hole, this is the first place to go. Look at your scene structure, and it's all set out really fast, easy to read. But the first thing we're going to look at is the skeleton blurb of a scene, which is what we already talked about. Select none. Point of view goal. So I hit select none to get rid of all of that. And then I look at point of view. That's Hannah. Point of view goal. And what if goal fails, the stakes of her scene here. So our point of view is Hannah. Keep her promise to her mother. And what if the goal fails? She will live with the guilt of disappointing her. So pretty good stakes for, I think, in a real world story. And then, so this is your skeleton blurb. Then I'm going to select none again, and we're going to look at the scene structure. So again, this is just the first scene. That's just a generic name. So the entry hook is, why does Hannah's mother want her to take a vacation? Great question. And then great way to keep the reader going. Then next comes the point of view goal. Keep her promise to her mother. That's her goal. The scene middle is really coping with her mother's death. She's very sad, and that's what she's doing. She's obviously stayed up till 3 a.m. And then the climax, she buys 2 tickets to Toledo. Remember, we're going to go back and look at the fourth wing. So if we look at our books here, that's the next one, is the fourth wing. And it is a romantasy. So it's a fantasy with a very strong romance. It's by Rebecca Yarros, and it is a best-selling novel. And it's a very long scene. Okay, it's like 3,000 words. So that off the bat lets the reader know we're reading an epic here. Fourth wing is like 200,000 words. So the length of the first scene is a hint to what the reader needs to expect. It's very long. So we don't have all of that. We only have 261 words here. And then we're going to look at the scene blurb. Violet must cross the parapet without falling, otherwise she will die. So that is our scene blurb. Violet, what she has to do, cross the parapet, which is like this giant connection between two buildings. And in the scene, it's raining, it's rocky, and she could slip and fall, or she will die. So that's the stakes. Conscription day. So here's our entry hook. Conscription day is always the deadliest. That tells us two things. It's a violent book, so it lets the reader know right away that there's going to be a lot of violence. They know that death is at stake in the first sentence. This hook sets the tone for the story. The reader wants to know if the protagonist will die. Point of view goal comes next, but I can handle my rucksack and I can handle myself. So the point of view goal comes on page 3. Again, page 3 is the point of view goal. That's letting the reader know, the long book coming up here, people. Violet's goal is to live, and this is the moment she states the story goal. The scene up to this point shows Violet doesn't believe she has the skills to survive the Rider's Quadrant. And the Dragon Rider's Quadrant right away. So the reader knows right away there's dragons in this book, so it just shouts fantasy, right? And that her sister, a decorated warrior, doesn't believe she has the skills either. The sister like really takes care of her, gives her a vest and rearranges her backpack, and it's just so obvious the sister thinks she's going to die. The point of view goal is delayed in time. So here's why the writer took 3 pages to give us the point of view goal. She delays it to make the goal believable and show how difficult it will be to achieve, because Violet is very tiny and she's just not warrior material, which makes a great book, I think, because we all want to see her succeed. All right, so the scene middle. Don't die, Violet. This is Mira, her older sister. I'd hate to be an only child. She grins and walks away, sauntering past the line of gawking candidates as word spreads of exactly who she is and what she's done. She's totally a cool person. Like, she rides all her dragon, and she's a great warrior. So it's like kind of the opposites. You know, Mira's amazing, and Violet is like this tiny little person and supposed to be a scribe, which is like a bookworm, not a dragon rider. So it's really cool. The book is cool. You should read it if you haven't. Okay, so Amira abandons Violet at the entrance to the Rider's Quadrant, leaving her to survive on her own. So now Violet's alone. That's the middle shift. And then here comes the climax. Okay, remember how we talked about the rain pouring on the parapet and how slippery it is? Somebody dies. Oh my goodness, she says, my hand flies to cover my mouth, but he loses his grip, this poor guy, and the water slick stone and falls, disappearing from view. A cadet falls to his death, leaving Violet's survival uncertain. So somebody dies right in front of her, and she kind of made friends with this guy. So it's quite the climax. I wasn't expecting it. So well done, Rebecca Yarros. And then, okay, so here comes Xaden. Xaden in the book is the romantic entrance. Single line of dialogue, your turn, he says, spoken by a potentially hostile character, creates a cliffhanger and makes the reader anxious for Violet's fate as she faces the parapet. So very excellent exit hook. We're still wondering if she's going to make it. All right, I'm running a little long on that one because I obviously love that book. Let's go to the next book, and that is the science fiction. It's called A Space Between Worlds, and it's by Micaiah Johnson. Let's talk about the story. The scene blurb. Kara must make Dell worry, otherwise she won't feel cared for. So that's the scene blurb. Kara is our protagonist. On Earth, number 197. This is our entry hook. Yeah, Dell worry, not be irritated. So she wants to feel cared for. So that is our goal. Here we come to the entry hook, or to the middle, the scene middle. And we go down here. You can see all this. Kara lets Dell know that she's safe in the scene middle. So that's a huge shift. She's letting her worry, letting that irritation build to worry, and then it happens. She says that's the shift. All right, so that's what she does. And then here we go down to the climax. So I steal a little time exploring the place fate tried to keep from. Remember the entry hook? She died here at 3 months. So this is kind of almost addressing that entry hook, which feels very put together and all structured and stuff. We love that. So Dell decides to spend more time on the planet instead of going back to her home Earth. Now we have the exit hook. I'm a little more valuable walking down the mountain than I was walking up. Why? Why is she suddenly more valuable? Really good exit hook. So all of these little plot points, these little, scene plot points, they tell us that this is a science fiction. They also hint at the romance, because why does she want Kara to feel worried about her? There's a little romance going on here. I also know in this book that Dell is Kara's boss. So that creates a power dynamic. I did get their names wrong. So Kara wants Del to worry, and Del is her boss. So that's totally speaking romance, power dynamic, super cool stuff. And then super lots of science fiction going on in this because, again, why is she more valuable, and why is she exploring how is technology going to help her and impact her in this scene? Okay, so that is science fiction. So next comes our thriller, which is called The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. And this book is interesting because remember how I said, I'm going to go to my bookshelf, but remember how I said we have to introduce our point of view right away. Who's the point of view? Well, in this scene, we don't know who the point of view is. It's an unnamed character. So that's a twist. That's a little different. But here's our scene skeleton blurb. The unnamed character must resist giving police information, otherwise she will be arrested. So here's our entry hook. If I leave this house, it will be in handcuffs. So what crime has been committed? What's the handcuffs about? So there's obviously a crime that's been committed. Lets the reader know right away that we're dealing with a mystery, maybe a police procedural. We're going to find out. So here is our point of view goal. Maybe they're hoping to trick me into telling them something I shouldn't. Good luck with that. So I want to read already to know, I want to read more just to know what's good luck with that mean. Is that her saying, good luck with that, I'm not going to tell you a thing? Or is that, I need luck here, I really need some luck to not talk to them? So we need to find out. We're going to keep reading. So this point of view goal is almost doing double duty there. So in the middle, what happens? So look, if you go here to plot, you can roll down to middle, scene middle. The cop asks the questions. Why did you go up there in the first place? I pressed my lips together. I told you, I heard a sound, she says, or the unnamed character says. So the cop is putting more pressure on her. So that's what's happening in the scene middle, putting more pressure on her to either not achieve the goal or to achieve the goal. So that's what happens in this middle, is a lot of pressure from the police. So then we go down to the climax. He's wondering if he's got enough to snap those cuffs on my wrist. He isn't sure. If he were sure, he would have done it already. He'd have put those cuffs on her. So what happens in this climax? It's achieved. It's success. She knows she's only being questioned. She's not going to be arrested. So in this particular scene structure, the goal is achieved. She is not going to go to jail today. Hopefully. All right. So then we go to the scene exit hook. So, and that is also, you scroll up if you're in here, and it's, what did the cop find? So Connors, the young officer, says, you got to come up here now. You got to see what's up here. Even from the bottom of the stairs, I can see his Adam's apple bobbing. Great visual and setting there. You won't believe it, he says. So that we want to know what are we not going to believe? So that leaves us hanging. We're going to turn the page to find out. And then we're going to look at the last book is Mystery, and it's Sandra Brown, and it's called Mean Streak. So this book, this is a prologue, by the way. It's the first scene in the book, and it's a prologue, so it's not like a chapter one or scene one. Emery is our point of view, and Emery must keep moving, otherwise she will die. So a lot like Fourth Wing, really high stakes, right? Super high stakes, more than going to jail, more than a happily ever after. She's got to keep moving, otherwise she will die. So here's our entry hook. Emery hurt all over. It hurt even to breathe. So she has been hurt, and we don't know why. We want to know why she's been hurt and who did it. So we move down to the entry, the point of view goal. And it says, by owning the pain, running through it, overcoming it was a matter of self-will and discipline. So her goal is to use her self-will and discipline. And what does that mean? Does she have military training? We don't know. We want to turn the page to find out. But she needs to use those things to keep going. That's her goal, because if she doesn't, she's going to die. So here's the scene middle. And we can look at the scene middle here. You can write stuff as you're editing your books. You can write little things in here to help you remember what you're trying to say to the reader. So how much further, she asks herself. God, she's actually praying, God, please, not much further. She doesn't think she can make it. And that is the scene middle. It's a shift, and she's got to force herself to keep going. Okay, so what happens in the climax? Well, it's not looking good for Emery. And guess what? It gets worse. Okay, so I'm just going to read it. Then from the deep shadows of the encroaching woods came a rustling sound, great setting, followed by great sensory details, followed by a shift of air directly behind her. Her heart clutched with the foreboding of disaster to which she had no time to react before skyrockets of pain exploded inside her skull. So somebody hit her. That's going to make us want to turn the page. Fabulous exit hook. So that pretty much brings me to the end of this. So there's our 5 books. It's back to you, Christina.
Oh, Alexandria, that was fantastic. So we are on time, but Raquel has a very good question. So let's address that before we say goodbye to everybody. So Raquel says, can we have several scenes in a row with the same goal, or do they need to be different even if they are not in a completed scene or completed in a scene?
You want to know if you can have like 3 scenes in a row with the same goal. So yes, the point of view goal needs to be addressed by the end of each scene. So say your protagonist is trying to get something to continue his mission towards saving another person. If he doesn't achieve or she doesn't achieve getting that object, it still needs to be addressed. Like you could do it in the exit hook, you could do it in the climax. Like, I'm getting closer, but I didn't quite get there. I still need to get whatever to achieve this goal. So yes, you can have a goal that is accomplished maybe in 3 scenes, but you still need to address that goal at the end of each scene. So the reader's like, oh yeah, we're still what we're working towards. That's still what they are working towards, the point of view goal. Does that make sense?
I forget who asked the question, but your answer was great. Thank you.
Oh,
Perfect.
Kel, great question. It is a good question. Thank you for asking.
Alrighty, well, fantastic. Alexandria, congratulations on your first event. I'm looking forward to many more. That was spectacular. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you all in the next event, whoever that may be.
Yep.